Welcome back to the Daily D, and today we are making homemade cinnamon buns. These are a real family favorite. I make them pretty often in the house and they get gobbled up. They're so good and they will give Cinnabons a run for their money. Now, if you shy away with making things with yeast, thinking it's too complicated or too hard, don't. This is an easy recipe, and especially if you have a stand mixer with a kneading paddle, but you can also knead by hand. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is get 1 cup of milk, and you're going to warm it to about 110 degrees. If you don't have a thermometer, it's just slightly warmer than you would do a baby bottle, because baby bottles you try and get like body temperature, which is 98, so just slightly warmer. You do not want it hot because that will kill the yeast. And in it you will put in 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. I buy mine in bulk from a bulk food store. It's much cheaper than buying the packets. And I also put in 2 teaspoons of sugar, and you're going to mix that. Just get the big lumps out, it's no big deal. And you're just going to set that aside for about 10 minutes and until it'll get frothy. We'll show you what it looks like in there. And in a mixing bowl, so if you have a stand mixer, get out your stand mixer, you're going to put in 4.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 cup of sugar, and you're going to stir that. And you're going to set that aside. Then you're going to get 2 eggs, and you're going to beat them. I've already beat mine, not beated them. I already beat mine. And you're going to add in 1/2 cup of melted butter. And you're just going to pour it in a little at a time at first. I'm going to put this on here so I don't get it all over my tablecloth. Because you don't want to cook the eggs, so you're just going to put a little bit in. Now if you get a look at the, as you can see, this is changing already. And this, going to get all this out of the way. This is going to be incorporated into the flour mixture. Doesn't have to be major stirring, you just kind of get it incorporated a little bit. Okay, and we are just going to set this aside and give our yeast mixture a few more minutes, and we'll be back to show you what you do next. Okay, so as you can see, the The mixture is really foamy, and that's exactly how you want it. And you are going to pour it all into the dough mixture, and you're going to put it on your stand mixer, and you're going to beat it with the dough hook until it is elastic and smooth. I've never given a tutorial on this before, so when I come back I'm going to tell you how long I had it on. Now if you don't have a stand mixer, you can start and put this in a smaller bowl, like a bowl that's better suited to it, so you can get it in, and you can just start folding it over and mixing it with your hands and forming a ball. Once you form a ball, I'll show you once the dough is done how you would do it with your hands to knead it. But in the meantime, I'm going to get this on my stand mixer. I forgot to mention, while this is on the stand mixer, or while you are kneading it by hand, set your oven to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it reaches 200 degrees Fahrenheit, turn it off. You don't want to leave it on at 200. Okay, we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so in my mixer, I have a Cuisinart. I had it at medium for approximately 5 minutes. As you can see, it's elastic. And so if you have to do this by hand, you're just going to fold it over with both hands. You're going to push, fold it over, both hands push. And you may have to knead for 5-10 minutes until it's nice and elastic and smooth. See how smooth this is? It's a beautiful dough. Okay, so once it's done, you're going to put it in a container, a bowl, a heat-proof bowl, like that, and you're going to cover it with a damp towel. Now what I do is I usually just wet mine in the sink, and then I wring it out as much as possible. You do not want it dripping into this. And you are going to put it in that 200-degree oven that you turned off for about an hour, and it'll double in size about. So if you can see how big it is now. And I'm going to put this in the oven, and we'll see you in an hour. Okay, so our dough, the buzzer just rang on the oven. It's ready to go. So what I'm going to do is, in the mixing bowl, I am going to put 2/3 a cup of softened butter. It has to be really room temperature. Do not melt it in the microwave. It has to be like that. 2 cups of packed brown sugar. And I put in 3 tablespoons of cinnamon. A lot of people like to cut it down, but I don't. That's what Cinnabon is. It's about cinnamon flavor. And you are just going to mix that until it's all well incorporated, and we'll be back with our dough. Okay, we are back. We just took the dough out of the oven, and look at it. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I get excited about this. Your damp towel, you're just going to set aside because you are going to use it again. And so first thing we're going to do is you're going to get your surface. I normally do this on my little wee piece of counter I have that's about this big, but it's so tiny and in a position that we can't get into filming it. It's a one-person area. So I am going to attempt to do it on this. It's going to be not as easy as if we did it on the counter, but counter's the best space. Don't mind my rolling pin. It's about 40 years old. I have about 8 rolling pins. This is my go-to. It's like my little buddy. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take this beautiful dough. Just look at it. Oh, gorgeous. And you're going to put it on here. Now, you spray the counter or whatever surface you're on with non-cook sticking spray, and that's going to help your dough stick to this rather than, a lot of times if you roll out dough, you'll roll it out and it shrinks back. This is going to give it something to stick to. And you are going to roll it out to about 15 by 25 inches. Okay, now this piece here is about 16 inches and it's about 28 inches long. So it doesn't have to be quite as long, but almost as wide. So you can see the dough is kind of sticking to this. This is going to be a little tricky because this surface is not meant for anything to stick to. But see, when you have a beautiful dough like this, it just rolls out so beautifully. And if you can't quite get it, you're kind of aiming for a rectangular shape. If you can't quite get it there, that's okay. Okay, I am just going to go to the other side. Okay, so this is pretty close to being rectangular. The edges are a little off. You can push it out with your hands to try and get it that last little bit rectangular. And then this is the butter and everything that we had mixed a few minutes ago. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pick a side that you're going to roll from. Now I'm going to roll from that side, and so this side I'm going to leave about this much where I'm not going to put any of the mixture on it. That's so that I could pinch the edges together. And you're just going to take your hands and you're going to just spread this out a little bit. Now, obviously, if I'm making this for someone else, I wear gloves, but if it's for my family, yeah, I'm old-fashioned. I use my hands. Obviously, I wash them 40 times a day and right before I touch anything. But with gloves, it might take a little longer, and I'll show you why. So on this edge, you want it to go right up to the edge, and it's just this one you want it a little part. Now on these edges, you want them right to the edge as well. So it's only going to be my left side that I want to leave empty. This side needs a little more love. Now this doesn't look like a lot of mixture, but there's a little bit of a trick to it. Okay, so I have it all down, and now I'm going to switch sides again. Second. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to take your hands and you're just going to kind of spread this out. Now, it doesn't look like it's going to cover it all, but it will, because the warmth of your hands is going to melt the butter a little bit. And you just keep spreading it out. Let your hands warm it up a little bit. So you're not going to use melted butter because that makes it a different consistency, so don't get the idea. Now, people do this all different ways, okay? Some people will kind of spread the butter on, and then they will sprinkle the sugar on. And then the cinnamon, roll it up. I've never had success with that. I found the filling, I had empty cinnamon rolls and all the filling came out. So I just let my hands warm it up, and then I spread it out, and that keeps at it. Keep at it. It might take about 10 minutes, but it will all spread out. And I'm just going to continue with this, and we'll get back to you once it's all spread out. Okay, as you can see, it's pretty well all over. A lot of times you can hold your hands on it. It'll, like, not melt it, but kind of, yeah, maybe melt it a little bit so it's easier to smooth. You want to get it as much as possible in the areas. And the patting down and the spreading helps to really connect it with the dough so it doesn't fall out as easy. So I'm just going to stretch this out to make sure it's uniform. Now, the important thing here when you're rolling it is to roll it and kind of push it back. You want this roll to be as tight as possible. If you roll it too loose, then the filling isn't going to stay in it. So you'll see me backtracking and going like that to make sure that the roll is really tight. Now you're going to find the middle sometimes is a little fatter than the ends, but that's okay. And you're going to try and keep it so that the ends are in and it doesn't flare out. So you see me tucking these in a little bit. And if I didn't say it before, you should turn your oven on to 200 again and warm it up, and as soon as it reaches 200 you are going to turn it off again. And I call this non-cook, what did I call it? Non-cook sticking spray, but it's non-stick cooking spray. Jessie reminded me when we got off. Okay, and so coming to the end, and so I'm just going to grab it and I am just going to turn it on here. And then this, you're just going to pinch in Make sure it's nice and tight, and then pinching it really well. Okay, and once it's pinched, I turn it over so it is one long roll, and I try and fatten up the end so it's like that. Hang on, I just gotta get my knife. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to, I measure it, okay? So this is 12, and this is 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, just say 22. So I want it 11 inches, which would be about here. So this is it. You're just roughly finding the middle, and you're going to cut it. And you now have 2 rolls about equal length. And then I measure this again. Okay, so this is about, this ruler is for baking, so this is 0 here and it goes out. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 10 inches, and I want it, yeah. So about 5, I'm going to cut it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So around here, I'm going to cut it again. Okay. So now we want this into 3, so you'll get 12 rolls. I'm just going to turn this a little bit. So you can measure it, or you can eyeball it. Then you're going to take a 9 by 13 inch pan, and you're going to spray it with the non-stick cooking spray. Notice how I said that right this time. And what I generally do is the seam. Just pinch it again. Doesn't that look beautiful? And the seam I try and put up against the outside. And the bigger rolls I tend to put on the outside. And then the smaller ones, I'll put in the middle. Okay? And now we're going to cover this again. Our oven has been at 200. It is now turned off. Don't forget to turn it off. You're going to cover it back up with that damp cloth, and you're going to put it in the oven for about half an hour to let them rise a little bit. Okay, so these have been in the oven, and as you can see, they've doubled in size. Your cloth is obviously going to need washing after that. Because there was butter used on that, you might want to sprinkle a little baby powder on your cloth, and if there's any oil, butter stains on them, it'll get rid of it so it doesn't ruin your cloth. So these are going to go into a 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes until golden brown. Now, it's not, sometimes the outside ones will turn golden brown and not the middle. Don't take them out. You want these to turn golden brown too, without overcooking them, because sometimes you'll find the ones on the outside seem to be done, but not the ones on the inside. So I'll show you what they look like when we get them out of the oven and tell you exactly how long I do them. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 25 minutes. And this goes into a 350-degree preheated oven. Now, if you'll still stay with me for 1 second, I'm going to get these in the oven. And you do want that to go on your middle oven rack. Okay, and while that's in there, you're going to take your mixing bowl and you're going to put in half of a package of cream cheese. You're going to put in a 1/4 cup of butter, and you're going to mix that until it's really well incorporated. Once that's done, then you're going to put in 1½ cups icing sugar, confectioner's sugar, people call it different things, in here, and keep whipping till everything is incorporated, and that's the cream cheese icing frosting that's going to go on them. So you just mix this up until it's very well incorporated, and then you put the icing sugar in, and I'll be right back with that done. So you can see this is all mixed and incorporated, and I am going to be putting the icing sugar in probably in 3 different, a third at a time, and mixing it, and we'll be back. I'd like to bring I should have done it, I keep forgetting for things like this I should use my hand mixer. Yeah, so we'll be back. Okay, so I got out my stand mixer, and I am just going to transfer it into the bowl I had the sugar in, and I just put the sugar in another bowl. I rarely use this because it seems to have, like, there doesn't seem to be a low. It all seems high. Sorry about that, just reaching over. And this cream cheese frosting that I'm making right here, you can make bigger batches of it, and you can use it on cakes, cupcakes, things like that. Okay, and then I'm going to put in half a teaspoon of vanilla and 1/8 teaspoon of salt. That's just Charlie in the background. He probably sees someone. Now, if you don't have a 1/8 measure, just take a pinch of salt and that'll be good enough. Down. And as you can see, it makes a simply beautiful frosting, and that's all ready for our cinnamon buns when they come out of the oven. So we'll see you in a few. Okay, so I just took them out of the oven. They're still boiling. As you can see, they're brown in the middle as well. Some of them are popped out. That's fine. You're going to take a baking dish. You're going to take a baking dish that is a little bigger than that. You're going to put it down, and this is the tricky part. You are going to hold it and flip it. I kind of made a mess there. Hang on just for a second. And then you're going to take this away. Love the silicone gloves because you can get as much goo on them as you want. You can just wash them in the sink. Okay, so see how some of them were popped up the top? Well, now it's not because you flipped them over. And all this goo that was on the bottom is sinking back down. We're going to let these cool for a little bit. We like eating them when they're warm. And we'll ice them, and we'll show you what they look like when we have one out and iced. Just a reminder that these are amazing even the next day. What we do is we take one of them, we put it in the microwave for about 30 seconds, top it with frosting. If the frosting that you've kept in the fridge is a little thick, you can pop it in for another 10 seconds, spread the frosting around, and they're best warm. So heat them up for 30 seconds and they're great. Another thing to remember is you can make these the night before, and instead of putting them when they're ready for the oven, instead of putting them in the oven, put them in the fridge, and the next morning you can pop them in the oven. They might take a couple minutes longer if they were cold in the oven, but it's great to make them the night before if you want to have them for like Christmas or Easter breakfast or a special something for someone. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, we are just cutting around this. They tend to bake together. There we go. Getting a nice, and you want a nice generous dollop. On there, and because it's still warm, it's melting in, and that is your cinnamon bun. So thank you for joining us. The recipe will be below in the description box, and don't forget to check out our recipes playlist for all of our delicious recipes. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and until then, happy baking.